Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Thomas, I'm just very, very concerned about what's going on in the EU right now, and I'm very concerned about our patriot brothers and sisters over there that are having to combat this incredible tyranny against them.
Well, Betsy, we've been talking to you, the conclave has been talking to you again and again about freedom of speech, and this is the number one issue right now, because that's the reason the mainstream media needs to go down and fake news needs to go down, because freedom of speech is not allowed anymore. We're in the age of falsehood politics and the age of untruth, the age when discernment is more valuable than gold. So what we're about to tell you is going to be a shock. If you're not ready for a shock, don't listen to this. I'm giving you a warning, and I'm not kidding, and you have never heard me give you a warning before. We have not addressed this because we have yet to quite figure out how to win in this case, okay? We know that in America, we're more advanced than what's happening in Europe. We're going to tell you the horrible story in Europe to get you...
Well, it's not necessarily that we're more advanced. It's that the progression of the war against Europe and this invasion by the globalists is far more advanced than where we are in the United States. So we are getting ready. We're seeing what's going to happen to us.
What she said.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I meant.
Because in many ways, people will say we're not advanced. Okay.
No, by advanced, I mean we are not as declined. we are not
right.
yet.
It's very sad because what we see over here, if you're listening to us over in Europe, we just feel this gray shadow being cast over Europe as this caliphate just invades and takes over everything, because you're not going to be able to beat this population issue.
Oh my goodness. And we, Betsy, we have talked about this for the last couple of days, and it became so imperative that we couldn't take time to write an intelligence report. So we're sending this out to all of our friends. And mind you, we have lots of friends throughout the whole world. You show us all the time these maps of where people are who are listening.
They're ourselves, and they're doing a great job pushing out the information to the patriots in their country. And
the app lets people get it without letting their government know that they're doing a URL search and so on and so forth. I don't understand all of that. But anyway, the app for Truth News Headlines and the Anonymous Patriots, a name for truth, gets you a back door, and that back door could be the only door you're going to have in the very near future. So what I'm about to say, I'm sorry, you might want to sit down. To our European friends, after our July the 4th, when we celebrate our independence, you won't have any.
Well, wait a minute.
Unless...
I'm pushing back that we're really not free and independent.
Well, we'll go there in a second.
Okay.
We are literally within 1 year. We are 1 year behind what's happening in Europe. And what's happening in Europe is the following. By the end of June, Article 13... If your ministers, 217 of them belong in the pocket of George Soros, and I call the European Union the throne of George Soros because it's the open society, it's no borders, it's one currency, it's central control of people who aren't elected, it's people who can be bought and paid for by George Soros. Remember, George Soros supplies all the boats that take the refugees from where they're at across the water to wherever they land. Why don't we just stop George Soros? Because 2 days ago, the European Union said the following, and I want to put this in perspective because by June 15th, Article 13 will say there is no more free speech on the internet, basically, which is everywhere, and it basically goes all the way down to street level, especially in Britain. There is no more free speech. As a matter of fact, you have to speak lies or you'll be put in jail. For instance, if you are asked a question and you criticize the refugees, you get put in jail. This is happening in Britain. If you say anything about crimes and wonder why the police aren't going into no-go areas where it's controlled by Sharia law and controlled by radical Muslims, you go to jail. If you're Tommy Robinson, you just have to yell a question across the street. You go to jail. You charge for something different than they even arrested you for. You cannot criticize the radical Islamic terrorist taken out of the car that runs down people even at the moment that they take the person out of the car because you would go to jail. How dare you stereotype and think that because that person is a refugee that they might be a Muslim and or that when they were yelling Allahu Akbar that they might have something to do with Islam. Of course, a radical, terrible form of it, and there's also in the past Christian radical, terrible forms that killed millions. And there are, of course, in the far past, Hebrew pogroms that killed millions of people. And, you have Stalinism and you have Hitler. And lots of people have been killed for ideologies. We need to stop thinking that ideologies are not the powerful tools that they are. We need to interact with those ideologies and saying, instead of saying, we do not talk with terrorists, we do not do business with terrorists. Yes, we do. And they're in our country, and we need to deal with that. In Europe, the number one terrorist in Europe is George Soros. He's an economic terrorist. He's been now kicked out of his home country, Hungary. He's been kicked out of Romania. He's now been kicked out of Italy, Czechoslovakia, Slovenia, Albania, Montenegro, Macedonia. Let's remember that George Soros conducted the following color revolutions and overthrew these nations. In 1974, the Coronation Revolution in Portugal. In Philippines, the Yellow Revolution in 1986. In Czechoslovakia, the Velvet Revolution in 1989. That's why they don't want him there now. In Serbia, the Bulldozer Revolution in 2000. And then it goes on and on, folks. The Grape Revolution in Moldavia, the Green Revolution in Iran, the Jasmine Revolution in Tunisia, Lotus Revolution in Egypt, Jasmine Revolution in China, the Colorful Revolution in Macedonia, the Orange Revolution in Ukraine, and then the Maiden Revolution again in Ukraine just a few years later, which we paid for. Billions of dollars. We helped him in that overthrow of Ukraine even the second time. Okay? The list goes on, and that doesn't count the things he's helped. So with Russia, he overthrew it twice. Belarus, he attempted Taiwan. He overthrew Georgia. Serbia, Ukraine, twice. The Maiden Revolution, folks, he killed people during that one. He paid to have people killed during that one. We know this. It's a fact. Tunisia, Zimbabwe, the Egypt Arab Spring. Okay, remember, he's the guy who broke the Bank of England. He's the guy who had to have Malaysian economic sanctions put on him because of the Malaysian economic crisis. He broke the Bank of Thailand. He tried to break the Bank of Hong Kong. They had to do unprecedented actions to war against this man. He was involved in the overthrows, and he helped the U.S. rogue CIA in Panama, Honduras, Nicaragua, Mexico, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Philippines, USSR, Russia, South Korea, Iran, Guatemala, Lebanon, Cuba. I'm tired. And in America, it's called the Purple Revolution, and it's still going on, and people won't even listen to us. They won't even take up the banner and charge towards this man and say to the man who got Google the new contract called the Digital News Initiative, which is going to control all news agencies in America, all 290 of them, by the scrolling text underneath what you're seeing on the screen. Doesn't matter what they're saying. Notice the scrolling text says different than what they're saying. But by the scrolling text, the Google has a contract with the United States government. They're going to read that, and anyone who disagrees with those words is going to be turned off. Turned off here in America. It's already happening. The program's in place. The data is being collected as we speak. In Europe, it's already happening. George Soros owns the 10 largest fact-checking companies. He bought all of them. And also the non-government organizations that say they're for freedom and democracy. Oh, I love these organizations. If you hear anybody say they're part of the National Endowment for Democracy,
please slow down.
They're communists. International Republic Institute, they are George Soros. These are paid for. Every person there is paid for by George Soros. The MacArthur Foundation, the Freedom House, the Open Society.
We've been preaching this for several years. Are people just not paying attention? Who is allowing George Soros to run this planet this way?
Europe is as asleep as we are. They've been invaded by 22 million refugees created by the bombing of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. 7 countries, 60 million refugees. It makes money for the Pope. It makes money for Turkey. It makes money for the UN. And it has destroyed and is destroying Europe. 2 days ago, 28 nations in the European Union voted that they will begin to send all migrants back. 500,000 at a time. 500,000 at a time. Let me repeat that. That's how bad it is, because they say if they do not do it at that rate instantaneously and continue it, in 5 years, Europe will no longer exist. There will be no nations in Europe. Europe will no longer exist. This is the European Union who is now going to vote, I think in June 15th or 12th, on Article 13, that then will say no one in Europe has the right on any media source to speak the truth. And you have to praise and bow to and kiss the feet of all refugees. You are being taken over, and if you don't rise up, as Hungary did, as Poland did, as Italy has done, as Czechoslovakia, Slovenia has done, you're in trouble because, folks, in Europe, plug something in. You're going to get now, just like they tried to do in America, but because we're such radicals, when they told us it was bad, then they got more hits.
Oh, yeah. And they say, this article could be bad for you.
It got more hits.
Oh, okay, good.
10 times more hits.
We love it.
So they stopped. But in Europe, you guys are so nice. You do what you're told, and you believe the following Soros groups, which you will not even prove it's Soros groups, but we have. Full Fact, the number one fact checker, owned by Soros and Pierre Omidyar, the owner of eBay. Then you want to go to find out where they get their program, and that's from Oxford, England. Oh, surprise, surprise, the Queen. Computational Propaganda Research Project. Then you find one of the largest ones is the Disinformation Review. Then you find the East Stratcom. And then you find the Atlantic Council, which puts out more than anybody. Then you find Prop or Not. Then you find Fact Check, Noodle Remover, European Media Monitor. Now, Fact Check's owned by RT, and they are the opposite. So if you want the truth, go to where they tell you the opposite is, and then filter through it. You have to exfiltrate.
You have to filter through RT.
You have to filter through.
It's just that they don't have the right, their perspective is a little off, so the lens that they look through is a little off.
Now, how far gone is Europe that you have to go to RT to get any partial truth because George Soros says everything that is bad is Russian? It doesn't matter. If the sky is cloudy, George Soros says that's Russian influence. He said Russians interfered in the French election. Russians interfered in the Italian. He's trying to get the Italian election overthrown, but it was internal. He got overthrown internally. That's what we need to do. He can overthrow elected officials because that's propaganda. That's popularity contests. And he does and has and will. And he's trying to do that to our current president. So what we're telling you folks is the following. This is a dead serious alert, a warning. Europe is not allowed to speak the truth, neither in public, in their media, and now especially because they just took down Facebook, Google, Twitter to size by suing them, public suits of over $8 billion, private sanctions of $9 billion. They're going to charge them 4% and charge them for their back taxes, and this could collapse all of those companies. We told everyone that is their agenda. They want to collapse these companies. Now, why do they want to collapse in Europe? And they did this in Australia. Did anyone hear about that in America besides us telling you? $2 billion in sanctions. Mark Zuckerberg went down, talked to the Australians. What did they say? Give us $2 billion or we'll put you in jail. He went to Europe. What did they say? We're suing you for $8 billion and here's $9 billion in sanctions for you and your friends. He came to America and what did they say? Oh, Marky boy, aren't you cute? Well, dude Zuckerberg, you're cool. Where's your T-shirt?
No, they're going to let him run his own.
We're done.
They're going to let him run his own news channel through Facebook. He was asked in Congress, are you a news service or are you a network? And he said, to provide information. That's what he said, because those are two different rules.
And he said, I'm not responsible for posting other people's stuff. So then he bought failing CNN. Trump had told you they're going to go bankrupt. They would be, except Mark Zuckerberg just bought them.
Yeah.
So that it can be controlled. Now, we're going to tell you the scary part.
So he's a news service now.
The part we've told you already is somewhat scary. In America, things have already been put in place. The U.S. Digital Service was put in place, and Eric Schmidt has already put in place the program that he intends to use here. We've told you about this well over a year ago. Eric Schmidt has disappeared now where? To North Korea, a horrible country, and then to Cuba, one of the only truly communist countries left. He is aiding our enemies. And as we told you, he's building an entire army of robots, and he's already put into space the 5G satellites. So he's already destroyed our ozone, and he's destroying space, and nobody even gave him permission but the military. And he's doing this for all countries all at once. Then he snuck into Russia through North Korea, which we told you, and you saw what happened then. In a matter of about a month, all of a sudden they had facial recognition so down, so pat, that they were arresting people in public in China for thinking about committing crimes. That's what Eric Schmidt did for China. They also totally controlled the entire internet there, proving that they can. Worked with James Breyer and the Breyer family there in China, who has basically controlled that. And they had to become totalitarians themselves and stay there, just like you have to be. That's why Eric Schmidt had to sneak out to go to a communist country to get out of Chinese control. And that's the reason Bannon tried to sneak into, getting some Chinese money, disappeared for a while, and then comes out swinging, and everything he says is nonsense, basically. So China wins. China always wins. So what is really happening here? Eric Schmidt set it up. It's called the Alphabet Digital Box, we call it. You will not, and this is in Article 13 in the European Union, every time you want to, Betsy can explain this much better than I. Every time you want to connect to a URL, Betsy, tell them how this works.
Well, it's just every time you hyperlink, you have a hyperlink on anything or link to anything, you're going to be charged a tax. And also, there's going to be restrictions on images. So, all those great memes that we use in our information arsenal, those won't be allowed. It's just, you might as well just have a dark screen. In the end, it's going to be that when somebody is speaking, you're just going to have to trust that voice, because that person, like you do all the time by providing proof, you're not going to be able to provide that proof or the links below. People are just going to have to take you for your word.
What about memes?
No.
No more memes?
No.
No more memes, people.
It's just ridiculous.
Memes were too powerful. The EU, George Soros has to take them down.
We told you how powerful they were, and we stocked up on these things and taught you how to use them, and we have been very successful.
And just like the Southern Poverty Law Center in America has designated certain groups, too far right or white supremacists or radical, and they close them down, and they're horrible. They're the worst of the leftists. They're fascists. They are the fascists, and they call people fascists, and that's what the left does.
All
now,
right.
Let's go back to what you just said. In Europe, they won't be able to use memes. They won't be able to tell truth. The George Soros fact checkers.
You can't even link to things that are within your own site.
A guy in Romania the other day got taken down from Facebook because he put up an article from Breitbart. Mark Zuckerberg will stop him, but he won't stop radical Islamic terrorism in America.
I believe that they're having to move very quickly now because the people of the world have awakened faster than they thought, and they are reacting to what is happening.
Now, here's what's really going on, and I think we've set this up enough for you to understand that you're all signing and already have, whether you liked it or not, probably, a new agreement, a new user agreement for Facebook and for Google and everything else.
We all are.
Did anybody notice you did that? If you didn't get to use them anymore.
But the thing is, it's either all or nothing.
Yeah.
And don't forget, we paid for these people to develop the stuff that they've developed after they stole the technology from Michael McKibben and Leader Technology. So we're getting effed every which way, which goes to show you your governments are not there to protect you. They are to enslave you even more than you are enslaved today.
Eric Schmidt has probably become a citizen of another country while he was gone.
But
I just realized that.
Who cares about him?
Because he set up what is going to happen. We told you this is going to happen. Google is going to fall. It will no longer exist. It's going to be called Alphabet. And it will control everything you see. And we already told you this. You want to do a search, you're going to pay. And you're only going to go to where they let you. And if you go to the wrong places, they're going to turn you off. That includes your bank account. That includes your everything. And anything on the Internet of Things they can spy. And if they find some reason, they will control you. This is the new Alphabet Big Brother. It's already planned. Eric Schmidt bragged about this. We've been telling you about this for, I think, years, it seems. Now, let me explain this clearly. And that is, this box will keep you from any freedom. It will show you the news it wants to show you. It will make sure if you go anywhere, even if you can pay for that search, when you get there, you're only going to get to what's approved. So the fact checker is going to make sure that there's nothing on the internet that does not agree with the new Google program called Digital News Initiative. And that's going to be true for Wikipedia. There'll be a new Alphabet Wikipedia. And anything that doesn't agree with that will not be allowed in this medium. Now, how can that happen? Because of net neutrality must be reversed. We told you from the beginning, net neutrality did not allow us to charge the big, Google, Twitter, the people using up all the bandwidth. They don't pay more than we do. As a matter of fact, we pay to go on, but they don't. Think of this. And we paid, the taxpayers, 40 to 45% of all the lines that are used by the internet, and including cloud storage. So when they say they own it, they don't. That is a lie. Now, get ready. It's bad. And then I'm going to tell you the solution. Only takes a second. When this is offered, don't take it, folks. But right now...
When what is offered?
When the Alphabet digital box cube that limits your freedom is offered to you, you will take it, because it will be the only thing, because it will be a public utility, because right now, Google, Twitter, all of them, all going down because they know they're fake, they know they stole their source code, they know they're connected to the government, they know they're all being surveilled, and Trump said, no more surveillance of any American. Do you understand that Trump caused this, and that George Soros on the other side is trying to win Europe for the exact opposite? This is a battle between George Soros and Donald Trump, and he's standing up for America, and Europe is losing. And if this Article 13 vote goes down, Europe is lost, folks. You will no longer get the report that we just got 2 days ago that said 28 ministers said if they do not send all the refugees, migrants back, in 5 years they won't exist anymore. Okay, if that news doesn't go out, and 217 of the members of the European Parliament are in George Soros's pocket, and also the black monarchy and all these other unelected people, the people who used to be monarchs who are now, made members of the European Parliament. All this is nonsense. That's why Britain wanted out, because they are warring against George Soros. That's why there'll be a new Brexit vote.
Well, you've got different factions in Britain, because when you say that, then we have to remember that they have their own cabals that are operating there just like they are here in America.
Exactly, and the Queen is not fighting them. And George Soros is like a monarch.
Not.
He's like the monarch of the European Union. And the Queen is fighting that because no one can look into her business, so she gets to run whatever she wants. Now, back to Trump. What is Trump doing? He set Dan Coates on a mission months ago. He said, in 30 days, you will have a plan that will show me how no American will ever be surveilled again illegally. How do you do this? Let me tell you how you do it. You turn Facebook off. It is unredeemable. You turn Google off. It's unredeemable. YouTube, you might be able to salvage part of it. Everything on your Gmail has been watched. Everything on your phone, all the phones are all spy devices. So what you're going to see here is a restructuring like you've never seen before, and they're going to make up pathetic excuses like they are with Mark Zuckerberg about why Facebook is going to collapse, or why Jeff Bezos could collapse if Donald Trump simply leans on him and says, RICO, monopoly, antitrust, because there is no bigger one. Or if he says, pay your taxes. If Jeff Bezos pays his taxes, he crumbles. Or pays postage, correct. If he pays his postage, he collapses. If the DOD just got a huge contract, almost as big as the CIA, for cloud management with Jeff Bezos to save him again from paying taxes, from paying his postage, and from actually being an American, and stop being an insane, totalitarian, crazy Silicon
I want to get back to the crashing of
cutout,
Facebook
cardboard,
and everything, because I really want to see that happen.
Well, it's very simple. You simply say to these companies, we're now going to hold you to the rule of law. That's what's happening with Mark Zuckerberg. His company is faltering all over the world. Why do you think Eric Schmidt's nowhere to be talked to? Because he'd be called before Congress. The idiot who took his place, of course, and the idiots who created the company, who really were nothing more than a couple smart college students who for a moment had a good idea, but they were in a room with 12 other people who had equally good ideas. They were chosen because they were soy boys and they were manipulable. Brin and Page, okay? Show me anything else they've done that shows their genius. Show me anything Mark Zuckerberg, Peter Thiel, show me anything anyone, Elon Musk, show me anyone that benefited from the IBM Eclipse Foundation. Show me anything they've done to show the genius of how they were able to get a monopoly in that specific niche of that tech industry, and I will kiss your foot.
Okay, our audience knows that. I want to go back to Dan Coates now, and with his plan, what are we going to see here?
we're going to see everything disassembled. You see, the Senate Intelligence Committee was spying on all Americans and leaking. They were spying on the president. They were spying on their enemies. They were spying on the other, all Republicans. They were spying on everybody and leaking it. So what we have here is an institutionalized form of surveillance and manipulation. Remember, much of the surveillance is kept as blackmail. That's what the surveillance is principally for. There's only one reason to surveil, is that you have an enemy. Right now, we technically have no enemy. We should not be surveilling anyone. The NSA should be able to turn the lights off and walk out, unless you want to listen to us and declare China an enemy. Because what are they laughing about? Make the G7, the G8, add Russia. What did we just say the other day? Russia needs to become a member of NATO, and you will stop the warm-up of the Cold War, and all you have to do is stop the Ukrainian manipulation of oil through their country and stop the sanctions on Russia, and Russia will become a member of Europe that will be so valuable. And finally, we'll stop making them into our fake enemy. We've never been in a war against Russia. They've always been our ally in every war. Think of that, folks. Okay, so what's going to happen is the Office of the Director of National Intelligence will probably be closed by the end of Trump's second term. There will be no corporate intelligence. There is no reason. There will be no British contracts with Serco,
Yes.
with CACI, with SI International, or with any of their subsidiary groups for any intelligence. Lockheed Martin will be charged, and everyone, including James Comey, whoever worked for them, should be put in jail for the trillions of dollars they've ripped off the Pentagon, in other words, we the people, for, and the Pentagon stooges of the SES that allow this year after year simply need to go to jail. That's what needs to happen. Now, how long will this take? We're talking about thousands of people. Will this happen? It depends. You have to start at the snake's head if you're going to kill the snake.
Well,
Obama needs to go to jail. Hillary needs to go to jail.
It'll happen a lot faster if we will get behind Trump and continue to give him our support during this war. Because there is a war going on, and our enemy is right here in the United States.
When the Mueller investigation is knocked out, or it gives its report and then will mean nothing anymore because the report will say nothing, we will reverse James Comey's immunity and put him in jail for perjury, for lying, and for all the many things that he has lied about, which we as the public know about.
Wait a minute, there's 28 counts of treason
Correct.
here. I don't want to hear this fluffy stuff about perjury.
Well, that's just the first cause.
Okay.
That's the one that we all saw. And then there's what we saw, the documents where he allowed everyone in the Comey bunk buddy room, including Lisa Page, to change his exoneration letter months before it was read to the public to exonerate Hillary Clinton for a crime that was never investigated, demoted to a mission by Loretta Lynch. She has to go to jail too.
Not a mission, a matter.
Oh, sorry.
A matter.
So Dan Coates is changing everything. You don't see this, folks. We've been saying this now for months. And we predicted this. We told you that the only way to salvage this is to turn the internet into what it is truly already, which is a utility of the United States government. It's just that it's always been a Department of Defense, DARPA, InQtel, PSYOPs, warfare, weaponized tool that they were experimenting with, and they allowed too much commerce to get on it. Now they can't collapse it, so it needs to become a utility. And it needs to become free and open. And the more you use it, like there won't be a Facebook anymore, but if there was a social media group like that, which should be created by Leader Technologies, because they already have all of that created, and they're the original founders of that.
Let anybody go out and create it, because in a free market, then we can choose which one we want to use. So the utility is there so that the lines are open and all kinds of things can flow. Right now, it's not a utility. It is owned and operated by this criminal cabal in order to surveil and tyrannize us.
And this means microchips too, and Intel who bought McAfee, and all these corrupt companies, which are all military spawned, usually through DARPA and or the National Science Council or whatever. You know, they all like to say they aren't, they are. Any of those big companies that went huge quickly, that took the base code from the IBM Eclipse Foundation, and no one even knows that exists without Leader Technologies, we wouldn't even know it exists. Anyone who's part of that group, which includes Hewlett-Packard, IBM, which includes PayPal and Microsoft and all of them, they all stole the technology. We can bring in the real technology, close that down, make it a utility, take out the surveillance elements, take the military out of it, close down corporate intelligence, close down contracts with foreign governments, even though they're called the Five Eyes, because none of those other four eyes are our friends, sorry. And really do what Trump is telling us to do, which is clean up the federal government. 4.5 million people, we need to make it at least half or a third of that, and make sure all senior executive service members leave, because they are the bureaucracy, status quo, that makes sure everything goes to the same old, and we don't need the same old.
No, we need Washington to be seriously downsized, and we need all the powers to go back to the states.